Now, I've got an awesome video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about the right way to release power in the golf swing. You see a lot of players, when they swing, they go hard from the top and they fling that ball in that direction. I'm going to talk about how to release power through the golf ball so that you get tons of lag, you get that huge snap of speed as you're hitting through the ball, and man, you're going to hit a whole lot more solid too. Let's go and get started. All right, so really cool drill for you today. What I've done is I've taken a tennis ball. These are cool drill because it's just household items. I've taken a tennis ball, I've put a hole in it. I'll talk about this black line later in the video. I've thrown a little bit of tennis overgrip on there just so it's easier to hold on to it when you're swinging it. This is such a skinny stick, especially if your hands get sweaty, it's gonna slide around. But I've just put this ball on there and I put it about 3/4 or half the way up this stick. It doesn't make too much difference. But what I've found is most players, when they go to the top of the swing, we all know that we shouldn't be rushing from the top of the swing. But our mind, our intuition tells us that if I don't start going really daggone hard from the top, how am I going to have any speed when I get to the bottom? Well, there's a way of doing this. It's that cracking the whip. It's that flinging it through impact. It's that snap of speed like everybody's told you about, but there hasn't been a good way to feel that. This is a fantastic way to feel that. Now, if we do this correctly, instead of having that ball fling back this way, what's going to happen is I'm going to keep this angle of lag and I'm going to rotate my body open. Here's the big key. As you start to rotate your body open, my hips, my shoulders, everything gets more facing out in front of me. And now I've saved everything up and got it into a position to where I can release this club out in front and that ball is going to fling toward the target. So here, instead of feeling like I stay closed with my body and I hit hard from the top, I'm going to feel like I first stay smooth until I get everything open toward the target. And then from there, I'm then going to fling this ball down the fairway. Now, once you get that sensation and once you've done this 5 or 10 times, the players that I've had do this drill intuitively start to get the right release pattern. So that should look something like this, nice and smooth. And then I'm going to fling that out in front. Now you can see that ball went almost straight ahead, a little bit to the left. If it goes a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, a little bit up, a little bit into the ground, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be that accurate with this drill. You'll know right away if you're doing it wrong because the ball is going to be going that way, away from the target. All right, so now that we got the idea, let's go ahead and talk about probably the biggest key to make this happen. And it happens with opening the body like I talked about. And so many times what I'll see a player do is when they start down, this left knee kind of kicks in, their hip stays locked, and everything stays facing away from the target. So now I'm kind of throwing and keeping my body very closed. A common side effect of this is standing up out of your posture. So if you're standing up and losing your posture, if you're casting from the top, it all starts with this left hip. And what I want to imagine is a couple things. I want to imagine that my first move down is getting my kneecap facing to the target. So as I start my downswing, I'm going to feel like I open up my left foot and get this kneecap facing more toward the target like that. So that's going to look something like this. Now, if you're not very flexible in your left leg, I have a good test for this. If you keep your foot straight ahead, flat on the ground, and you rotate your hips as much as you can with your knee locked, how far can you open up? If you can't get at least 45 degrees open with your hips, with your foot straight ahead, you need to flare that foot out. And the reason again is so that you can get that knee opening up. If you have limited range of motion in your hip socket, if your foot is square, you're going to try to open your hips, you're going to try to open that knee, but it's simply not going to happen. You don't have the ability to do that. So flare that front foot out. So again, the first move down is going ahead and open that knee, get it more toward the target. The second piece that I want to feel like is I want to imagine there's a string tied to my belt loop here, and somebody's sitting back here behind me, and as soon as I start my downswing, they're going to pull that string and it's going to push my hip back this way. So they're going to yank my hip open, and that's going to allow me to get my body open in this position to where now again I can throw this toward the target. Now, let me give you the secret to this. This is this black line. And if you do everything that I talked about here so far, and you don't do what I'm talking about with this black line, none of this is gonna make a hill of beans difference because you're gonna hit it so far to the right that you're really gonna be frustrated. Or if you start to open and come over the top, that ball is gonna have that big slice, which we don't want. The key is getting this black line to square up early. So as I start to open my body, I have to have this club coming from the inside. And what a lot of players will do is they'll leave that face open the entire time. So instead of having this black line squared up with the ball and being kind of perpendicular to where the ball would be, you can see this would be open, this is closed. You can see that line opening and closing. So instead of having that ball squared up to where now the club face would be square, players will deliver that with the face open. If you can learn to square up that black line as you're coming down, so I'm opening, I'm squaring that black line up, and then I'm flinging the ball, that's when you're going to be able to hit those nice power draws. Now that's what I call the move in the Top Speed Golf system. And I'm actually going to walk you through in this bonus video what I call the tennis racket drill, and I'm going to talk about exactly the motion you need to do with your hands and wrist to get this black line to square up. See, most people do it the wrong way and they square up the wrist by doing this, and now that line is open. I'm going to struggle with everything we talked about here today. So I'm going to play a preview of that video here in a second. All you need to do is go ahead and click the card that pops up on your screen, and you'll get instant access to that video. If you don't see the card, don't worry about it. Just go down to the description below, click the link there, and I'll see you in the tennis racket drill. Pair that up with what we talked about here today, and you're going to have some fantastic results. I'll see you there. Good player problems. We're going to talk about shallowing that club shaft out as we're starting down, as we're doing this rotating of the face that we worked on in the last video. As we start this downswing, what you'll see with basically all of the top players is instead of coming kind of over the top and letting the hands come out away from their body, letting the club come out away from their body, again coming down steep into the ball and then having to open up, kind of fillet open the face and add loft to it, the flattening of the shaft should happen as soon as we start down. So as we start this downswing, what we want to have happening here, you can imagine that if I draw a line from the hosel of my club up through my right elbow, that's my swing plane line, my elbow plane. As I go to the top of the swing, I'm going to be slightly above that. And then as I start down, I want my hands to start to shallow out. I want the club to shallow out inside of this elbow plane. And at the same time, I'm going